From one user YOLOing his mom's $1 million IRA to another user making over $10 million, we're gonna go over the most DEGEN WallStreetBets trades we haven't talked about over the years. Every ad 5472 is a user who lost his dad's money trading and is about to get the beatdown. Honestly, things were never really going all that great for him, with a post from a year ago titled, "The Way to Become Rich, Loophole," and Elon Musk is in the government? Not really sure if he isn't the greatest speller, or if maybe he was just in a hurry as he was writing that, but it gives us a bit of insight into the level of intelligence we're dealing with here. He posted a few more times about SMCI, MicroStrategy, and Roblox, but eventually posted an actual screenshot of his portfolio on April 8th. It seems like he was very bearish, cause the market opened in the green for the day, but the same can't be said about his portfolio. He didn't say exactly what he was holding, but down 92% for the day, it was definitely some sort of out-of-the-money short-dated puts. It looked like it was over for him, especially considering this was a margin account, but every ad stayed strong and held onto all of his puts. And luckily for him, Trump doubled down on his tariff threats, which sent the market falling once again. By the end of the day, he was no longer down 92%, but actually only 16%, and it briefly spiked in the green too. This was great for the bearish trader, but the next day, Trump actually said, "Yo, those tariffs are canceled now." This bullish news completely destroyed his portfolio, with him now being down $17.5 thousand over the past month. This is already devastating, but it turns out that this money may have been stolen from his dad. "Chris, sell that crap or I'll be coming to the school. You don't want that. In 5 minutes, I'm getting in my truck." "I sold. You lost $17,000 and you activated $5K in margin credit in my name."
Why would your dad care, man?
But it's his money, man. He gave me the money to go to freaking school.
That's the same as stealing. Log out and shut your phone off. OMG! He sold. I'm putting the $3K in his savings account. So yeah, it seems like he definitely is a rebel. He has bigger things to worry about now though, cause 2 months later he posted, "They added ice cubes to my chocolate milk." And about a month after that, it seemed like he moved on from Robinhood to losing money playing poker. Solid Sock 1794 is a user who YOLO'd everything, but instead of YOLOing his own money, he used his mom's IRA. His journey started back in February of 2024. His mom had a pretty solid IRA with $1.4 million in it. Solid Sock, being a financial professional, decided to take it over, and supposedly, she was more than okay with this. I can't even make much fun of him, because he was actually doing a really good job. 5 months into it, he was looking at about $200,000 in gains. And in the first quarter of 2025, he was sitting at just about $3.5 million. Solid Sock 2.5x'd his mom's 7-figure IRA, and he was still dead set on YOLOing it into calls on stocks like Hims, Nvidia, and Google. Come April of 2025, this portfolio unfortunately did not keep growing, but instead fell from 3.5 mil to 800K. Not sure if his mom was informed that her IRA was not only down 2.7 mil from its peak, but also 600K from where it started, but it didn't matter, cause Solid Sock knew he'd be able to make it all back. And he actually did. On July 11th, he posted a screenshot of the IRA that was now worth $5.4 million. And best of all, 85% of it was sitting in cash. Steve is a user who is definitely one of the richest traders on WallStreetBets. I'm not going to spoil how much he has in his portfolio just yet, but his first post on his account is already very spicy. His actual first posts have since been deleted, but the oldest post on his account that we can still access was made on July 10th of 2025. He said, "Minerals guy here, happy to say the thesis panned out." It sure did pan out, cause he was up $1.3 million just for the day. Looking at his current positions, he was still a minerals guy and remained very bullish. James Stabs 671 said, "He kept telling y'all but no one listened." But the thing was that it still wasn't too late to listen to Steve. In fact, even after a 7-figure gain for the day, it was still very early on. No joke, 5 days later, he got another $1.1 million gain for the day, but his portfolio was now worth a grand total of $3.1 million. He had a lot of MP materials calls, and even after this massive gain, he still said that he pretty much had no intention of selling, even though he could easily retire with this money. And I can't even make this up, literally only a few hours later, he posted another screenshot showing that he was up another 440k for the day. This is one of the rare stories on the subreddit where people just can't hate on him at all because he actually really tried to get people in on the rally. 10 days and one due diligence post later, his $3.6 million portfolio was now worth $5.4. He just threw $1 million into energy fuels calls, so it's safe to say that he wasn't ready to give up just yet, even though he has an absolutely ridiculous looking chart. 3 weeks later, he did not lose it all, but instead made another $3.3 million. With his portfolio worth just under $9 million, most people would wonder why he wouldn't just sell it and, retire. He stayed bullish though, and 3 weeks after that, he hit a very big milestone, breaking past $10 million. If you can make that much in months, take out 8 mil, put it into bonds or something else boring and safe, and just start again with the 2 mil.
Shut up!
15 days later, 19 mil, and 1 week after that, $30 million, plus an additional 1.8 mil in a separate Fidelity account. He's still all in, which is of course very risky, but the same could have been said back when he only had $100,000 in his portfolio, so I guess only time will tell where he ends up. When living in uncertain times, hedging your bets can be a wise move. And with platforms like Kalshi, you can trade on real-world events and use the platform to hedge the positions you have in your stock portfolio. Kalshi is the first legal platform in the US where people can trade on events in all 50 states. You can trade on things like the number of rate cuts we'll have this year, what the US GDP growth will be for the third quarter, and if you're really going for a wild card, on whether or not J-Pow is gonna get the boot. Kalshi gives you an interactive chart that lets you see how the odds of a given event have changed over time, which is honestly kinda cool to see even if you're not gonna place a trade on it. And if you weren't already aware, even Robinhood has partnered with Kalshi. Any cash or positions you have on the platform will earn an additional variable APY. This means you can double dip on picking a winning trade and get an additional 4% a year. That's like buying a stock on Robinhood and then getting an extra 4% a year on your portfolio value. Each trade tab has a public thread on it where you can choose to share your thoughts and positions. You can look at the leaderboard tab and see monsters like Global Marco, Bold Venture, and Big Timmy, who have all made over $500,000 on the platform. The site works great on desktop, but they also have a fantastic mobile app, and signing up only takes like 2 minutes. Here's the chart showing public sentiment on the upcoming jobs report for the month, and as you can see, it updates all day long. Will there be an increase of more than 25,000 jobs? Well, if there is, I will make a $50 profit, and if not, this $100 will be snapped to oblivion. The first 500 people who sign up using my link in the description will get a free $10 credit after placing their first trade, so why not sign up and see what you can do with your bonus. The Master 8899 is a user who was willing to risk it all and YOLO over $500,000 on a fast food chain. His trades weren't always so reckless though, and his first post was made all the way back in January of 2021. Disregarding Robinhood's glitch, his portfolio was sitting just below $200,000. But it must have been pretty rough times for him, because only 2 days later, he came back to WallStreetBets to show that he cut his portfolio in half, and also had a forsaken account deficit. He titled the post, "Stealing Back from the Hood." But nope, it seems very well like the hood was still stealing from him. 3 days later, he said, "Hodl," and was down 23.5k over the past hour. The funny part too is that these posts all got no upvotes or replies, so for the time being, he was just struggling in silence. His next post was not WallStreetBets related, but it still was definitely pretty concerning for other reasons. After that, he stopped posting for a few years, and it seemed like he quit his trading journey for good. Until he finally came back in the summer of 2024. He showed off his $78,000 portfolio that was fairly volatile, but overall unimpressive. After that, he showed off his $15,000 worth of calls on Walmart, $26,000 gain on a QQQ day trade, $35,000 gain on SPY 0 DTEs, $36,000 gain on NVO, $10,000 gain on AMD, and $11,000 gain on more SPY 0 DTEs. He started off the next month by throwing $82,000 into 2 DTE Nvidia puts, but we can see that things quickly started going downhill. He sold before things got too ugly, but his next trade would be one that he'd remember for the rest of his life. I like the guac. he says. So much so that he was willing to throw 134K into calls. He was up a whopping 3%, and that was all he needed to see before he went all in. 5 days later, he no longer had 134K thrown in calls, but now 600,000. And these calls were no longer in profit anymore, with him down about $46,000. Jello Throw said, "Insider play, y'all, hop on." But unless he wanted to just donate money, 3 weeks later, it would be pretty clear that this was not an insider play. Down almost 100%, he lost over 460K, and the real loss was even bigger than that, considering he cut some of his losses before this. Luckily though, while he was losing money on Chipotle, he was still doing pretty good with 0DTE options trades, with one $11,000 gain and another $26,001 a day later. A month after that though, he let all the Chipotle stuff smooth over and came back with a vengeance. He got a little trigger happy with the buy and sell button on 0DTE SPY contracts, and honestly, he just made way too many trades throughout the day for me to go over, but by the end of it, he was sitting on a 109% gain for the day and a $312,000 portfolio. And since then, he's posted about his search for a cafe with comfy chairs, but not about his trades on Robinhood, so that's where his story ends. LQH9080 is an Uber driver who is willing to YOLO it all. LQH has made the biggest trades of his life in the middle of October, but he's actually been on WallStreetBets for quite some time, with his first post being made way back in 2019. We also see that he was off to a nice start with a $1,300 loss on his Shopify calls. He took a 2-year-long break from posting to the subreddit, but when he finally came back, it seems like he was doing quite well for himself, with a $3,500 gain for the day, except it was all in on Peloton shares, which we all know now isn't necessarily a booming stock anymore. He also said that this was money he was going to use for a car, and it seems like he had margin turned on, so overall, very risky business. After that, he posted a screenshot of his $1,800 gain on Newegg, his $4,500 gain on Redbox a bit after that, his $10,000 YOLO on AMC, and $4,000 gain on Sega Technologies. So, you know, a very safe portfolio full of companies that are on the up and up. Turns out he was doing pretty well though, cause a few months later, he showed off his Robinhood portfolio that was up $40,000 in the past month. He posted a bit more about AMC and other meme stocks, but then he started asking for suggestions on what casinos to hit up. And a few months later, he said, "Last $150 to Gambo." The fact he said last $150 is a little concerning, considering he made this post after he started going to casinos, but whatever. It seemed like he completely ditched trading and even add sports betting to his agenda. But finally, on October 3rd of 2025, he made his grand return to WallStreetBets. He's been out the game for quite some time, so he figured he may as well throw his Uber and DoorDash earnings into 0DTE options. He threw $2,800 into out-of-the-money QuantumScape calls, and if the stock didn't make a big move that day, his calls would of course go to zero. But luckily, this was a very bullish day for the stock, with it rising 11%. He sold for 12.3K 3.5 hours later, but also said that he wasn't able to sleep that night because he was thinking about doing something stupid. Suspicious Sir 9509 asked, "How long does it take to make 3K in Uber Eats?" And LQH responded that it took him almost 2 months to. Well, he knew it was only right to keep feeding the hot hand, so he decided to do another 0DTE QuantumScape trade only a week later. He threw $9,500 into calls and somehow wound up selling for $19,000 later that day. LQH was on a good run, but he said that he was still DoorDashing overnight to keep his bills paid. Someone also made a comment on this post that really opened my eyes. Apparently, some people have been using the instant deposit feature to purposely overdraft their account to try and make these risky trades without actually having the money. Not really relevant to the story, but definitely some very DEGEN activity. Anyway, 5 days later, LQH was feeling risky as ever and threw $13,000 into 0DTE SPY puts. The market was up a fair bit in the morning, so his puts took a hit, but by lunchtime, it was down in the red for the day, and his puts were up a monstrous 200%. His portfolio was now worth $71,000, and using his own math, that would take him almost 4 years to make that DoorDashing. So was he gonna lock in his profits and throw that money into something safe like VU or VTI shares? No. 2 days later, he threw $45,000 into more 0DTE puts. And somehow, he was up another $18,000 with these. It seemed like LQH was on an unstoppable streak, but the market got ready to take some revenge on his portfolio. SPY was in the red that morning, but quickly rose up into the green by noon. His $64,000 position would only be worth $20,000. But joke's on us, he left another comment showing that he sold not too long after he made the post. He even said that he withdrew 30K of his gains, but wanted to keep 40,000 on Robinhood to keep yellowing on risky options. Y'all might catch me at your front door this weekend. Don't forget to tip your favorite dasher. That was his most recent update, so let's just hope he doesn't end up losing it all. Old Witch is a user who has made and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on Robinhood. Old Witch started off pretty hot, with his first post being a screenshot of Reddit calls that were up 43K at the time. And craziest of all, he had no intentions on locking in any of his profits just yet. Moist Banana 8449 said, "Respectfully, how do options even work, and which ones are good?" Well, Old Witch wasn't lying and held onto his contracts, coming back 3 months later with an update. He was up 445%, nearly giving him a 6-figure gain. He posted another screenshot of his calls, but got back to us in the summer with some pretty disturbing news. His once $150,000 portfolio was now worth a mere $20,000. Which was actually right back where it started at. Reddit's drop from $225 a share to $90 was rough, and it definitely shows in his portfolio. But through rain and shine, Old Witch stayed loyal to Reddit and kept on loading up on more calls. Reddit's dip was fairly short-lived, and by August 11th, the stock nearly tripled in price from its lowest point that year. Old Witch got back on WallStreetBets and showed us that his portfolio was brought back to life and now worth $210K. $20,000 to $190K, back down to $20K, and straight back up to $210K after Reddit reported solid earnings. A lot of people told him that he should lock in his gains and stop the risky trading. That's a route that most traders on the subreddit never take though, and 1 month later, he started to make even riskier trades. He bought 1 DTE Google calls that were in the money, but not by very much. So if Google happened to have a bad couple days, his $91,000 investment would be completely wiped out. The stock opened in the red that morning, so he felt like a reversal was soon to come. And luckily, the stock rose about 1.7% over the next 6 hours, which was enough for him to realize a $51,000 profit on his calls. The even crazier part is that he says he's been hitting these intraday Google dips. He just didn't really post them all that often. His strategy was buying in-the-money Google calls when the stock was trading inversely to the general market, which had been working quite well for him so far. Some people hated on his strategy, but according to him, 91K was 24% of his portfolio, meaning his total portfolio was now worth $379,000 instead of $209K. 3 days later, he posted another screenshot of some Google leaps that were up $133K in total. He hasn't given us any updates since then, but looking at the options chain, his calls are worth another $23K if he's still holding. Puzzleheaded Back 96 is a user who was not scared to watch his money burn to the ground. On December 18th, he was feeling very bearish for the day, so he decided to short MicroStrategy with 2x leverage. The market immediately started falling quite a bit at open, but was headed back towards the green about 2 hours in. Luckily though, the market fell below a point of no return and kept on crashing that day, with MicroStrategy in particular falling about 10%. He sold his SMST for a $30,000 gain and was feeling pretty good, but stopped posting his trades for a few months after that. That's until June 27th, when he had one of the most volatile trading days I've ever seen. He started off the day with just about 125K in his portfolio and decided to take literally all of it, minus 5K, and throw it into 0 DTE SPY puts. Boy oh boy, this turned out to be a terrible move, because SPY rose 0.3% over the next 2.5 hours. This might not sound like that big of a move, but his puts were now at the money, and of course being 0 DTE, this meant that he was going to be in for quite a rough ride. His portfolio was down from 125,000 to just 57K, but 2.5 hours later, SPY did a complete 180 and was now down 0.5% for the day. His $57,000 portfolio flew up to a $250,000 where he cashed out. Good thing he did too, cause SPY actually did another 180 over the next hour and a half, which would have left his puts expiring near worthless. Prudent Air 1922 said, "Did you dump 120K into a 0 DTE?" And he replied with, "YOLO, I lost 1 million is a user who we've covered in a prior video, but he just came back to Reddit with a huge update. If you need a refresher on who this guy is, Basically, he lost $1 million trading, became homeless at one point, and lost his relationships with his friends and family. But this was all okay because he learned the ins and outs of the market and was ready to make it all back in a safe way. He started off pretty profitable actually, but stopped posting for over a year until he came back on October 14th. Did he make it all back like he said he would? Nope, he actually lost another $250,000. Sigh, am I just an effing moron? Why can some of you full port 10 times, but I can never win once? Veteran Trailer Trash said, yes, but it's okay because life is short. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment who had the craziest trade.